Chapter 8. And the apostles returned from preaching, and came together unto Jesus, and declared and described to him all, both how much was done, and how much they taught. And he said to them, Come you yourselves down privately into a deserted place and rest a little. For indeed, there were many coming and going, and they had no opportunity to eat. Also John's disciples came, and declared to Jesus that John was beheaded. After these, when Jesus heard, he took them to withdraw down privately. He and they departed from there in a boat over the Sea of Galilee of Tiberias, into a deserted place, down privately into a city called Bethsaida. And the crowds heard and saw them going, and many knew him, and ran together there, out of all cities, followed him on foot. A great multitude followed him, because they saw his supernatural signs, which he did on the feeble. And the multitude went ahead of them, and came together unto him. Now Jesus went up into a mountain, and there sat with his disciples. Now the Passover, a festival of the Jews, was near. And Jesus went out to see a large crowd, and had compassion on them, because they were as sheep, not having a shepherd. Now he received them, and began to speak, teaching them many things concerning the kingdom of God. And he healed their sick ones, and healed those having need of attention. Now the day began to lie down. Evening came to pass, and already becoming a late hour. Now his 12 disciples came to him, saying to him, It is a deserted place and a late hour. The hour is already past. Release them, the crowd, so that they go away into the fields all around and towns all around, to lodge and find provisions, to buy for themselves loaves, food. For indeed they have nothing which to eat, because we are here in a deserted place. Now Jesus answered, saying to them, They have no need to go away. You give them to eat. And they said to him, Will we go away to buy 200 denarii of loaves and give to them to eat? Jesus then lifted up his eyes, and saw that large crowd coming unto him, and said unto Philip, Where can you buy loaves, so that these eat? Now this he said, testing him, for indeed he himself knew what he intended to do. Philip answered him, 200 denarii of loaves is not sufficient for them, so that each of them takes something little. Now he said to them, How many loaves do you have? Go and see. And they knew, saying, 5 and 2 fish. One from his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, There is one little boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what are these among so many? Now they said to him, We have no more here except 5 loaves and 2 fish, unless we go to buy food for all these people. For indeed they were about 5,000 men. Now he said, Bring them here to me. And he commanded them, the crowd, all to sit down, groups by groups, on the green grass. Now Jesus said unto his disciples, Make them, the men, recline in order to eat, each 50 in a company. Now there was much grass in the place. Therefore the men reclined in order to eat, in number about 5,000. And all of them sat down, rows by rows, by hundreds and by 50s. Now Jesus took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, looking up into heaven gratefully, gave thanks, blessed them, and broke the loaves, and distributed the loaves to his disciples, so that the disciples set it before the crowd who reclined. And likewise from the 2 fish he divided among all, as much as they desired. And they all ate, and were all filled. Now when they were satisfied, he said to his disciples, Bring together the fragments that abound, so that nothing is lost. And therefore they brought together, took up the fragments, and filled bountifully 12 lunch baskets full of fragments from the 5 barley loaves, which abound after eating, also from the fish. Now they who ate the loaves were about 5,000 men, besides women and children. Therefore men, seeing the supernatural sign that Jesus did, said, This is truly the prophet, the one coming into the world. Jesus therefore, knowing that they were intending to come and take hold of him, so that they make him king, Jesus immediately constrained his disciples to enter into the boat and go before him into the opposite side of Bethsaida, while he released the crowd. And when he had released the crowd, he departed again, went up away into the mountain by himself privately to pray, being there alone. Now when evening came into being, his disciples, having gone down onto the sea and having entered into a boat, went to the opposite side of the sea, towards Capernaum. And it became already dark, and Jesus had not come unto them. Now the boat was already in the middle of the sea, tortured by the waves, and he saw them torturing in rowing. For indeed both sea arose, and the great wind set against them blew. And now concerning the 4th watch of the night, and Jesus went away, came unto them walking on the sea, and desired to have passed by them. Then they, the disciples, having rowed about 25 or 30 stadia, saw him, Jesus, walking on the sea and becoming near the boat. And they were afraid, thought it was a phantom, and screamed, saying, It is a phantom. For indeed they all saw him and were troubled, and screamed out of fear. And now immediately he, Jesus, spoke with them, and said to them, Take courage, it is I. Be not afraid. Then they desired to receive him into the boat. Now Peter answered him, saying, Lord, if it be you, order me to come unto you on the water. Now he said, Come. And Peter, having come down out of the boat, walked on the water, to go unto Jesus. Now looking at the strong wind, he was afraid, and began sinking, cried out, saying, Lord, save me. Now immediately Jesus stretched out his hand, having caught him, and said to him, Little faith, into what did you doubt? And they went up unto them, entered into the boat, and the wind ceased. Now they in the boat came and worshipped him, saying, Truly you are the Son of God. And they were very amazed among themselves from more than enough, and marveled. For indeed they understood not the supernatural sign of the loaves. For indeed their hearts were hard. And crossing over, immediately the boat came into the land of Gennesaret, and anchored, into where they were going. And when they came out from the boat, immediately the men of that place, having recognized him, ran through, and sent out into all of that region around, and began to carry, brought on beds to him, all having it badly, wherever they heard that he was. The next day the crowd stood on the opposite side of the sea, having seen that there was no other small boat there, except that one into which his disciples had entered, and that Jesus had not entered together with his disciples into the small boat, but his disciples went away alone. Now there came other small boats from Tiberias, near to the place where they ate the loaves, where the Lord gratefully given thanks. When the crowd therefore saw that Jesus was not there, nor his disciples, they also entered into boats, and came into Capernaum seeking Jesus, and having found him on the opposite side of the sea, said to him, Rabbi, when did you arrive here? Jesus answered them, and said, Truly, truly, I say to you, you seek me not because you saw the supernatural signs, but because you ate from the loaves, and were satisfied. Work not for the food that perishes, but for food that stays into everlasting life, which the Son of Man will give to you. For indeed this one, God the Father, has sealed. Then they said to him, What do we do so that we work the works of God? Jesus answered and said to them, This is the work of God, that you believed into him, who he has sent. They said therefore to him, What supernatural sign do you do then, so that we see and believe you? What work? Our fathers ate manna in the desert, just as it is written, He gave them bread from heaven to eat. Then Jesus said to them, Truly, truly, I say to you, Moses gave to you not bread from heaven, but my Father gives you the true bread from heaven. For indeed the bread of God is he who came down from heaven and gives life to the world. And then he said unto him, Lord always gives to us this same bread. Now Jesus said to them, I am the bread of life. He who comes unto me will never hunger, and he who believes into me will never at any time thirst. But I have said to you that you also have seen me, and do not believe. All that the Father gives me will come unto me, and he who comes unto me I will never cast aside, because I came down from heaven, not in order to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me. Now this is the Father's will who sent me, that all who he has given to me, I not lose from it, but will raise it in the last day. Now this is the will of him who has sent me, that everyone who looks at the Son and believes into him has everlasting life, and I will raise him in the last day. The Jews then murmured concerning him, because he said, I am the bread who came down from heaven, and said, Is this not Jesus the son of Joseph, whose father and mother we know? How then this one says, I came down from heaven? Jesus therefore answered, and said to them, Murmur not with one another. No one can come unto me unless the Father who sent me draws him, and I will raise him in the last day. It is written in the prophets, and they will all be taught of God. Everyone therefore who hears and has learned from the Father comes unto me. Not that anyone has seen the Father except him, being from God. This one has seen the Father. Truly, truly I say to you, he who believes into me has everlasting life. I am the bread of life. Your fathers ate manna in the wilderness and died. This is the bread which came down from heaven, that anyone who has eaten from it also does not die. I am the living bread which came down from heaven. If anyone has eaten from this bread, he will live into eternity. Now the bread that I will give is my flesh, which I will give for the life of the world. The Jews therefore argued with one another, saying, How can this one give us his flesh to be eaten? Then Jesus said to them, Truly, truly, I say to you, unless you have eaten the flesh of the Son of Man and drank his blood, you have no life in yourselves. He who chews my flesh and drinks of my blood has everlasting life, and I will raise him the last day. For indeed my flesh is truly food, and my blood is truly drink. He who chews my flesh and drinks my blood stays in me, and I in him, just as the living Father sent me, and I live through the Father. Also, he who chews me, also that one will live through me. This is the bread who came down from heaven, not as your fathers ate manna and died. He who chews this same bread will live into eternity. And these he said in the synagogue, teaching in Capernaum. Many therefore from his disciples having heard, said, This is a hard word. Who can hear it? Now Jesus knew in himself that his disciples murmured concerning this, and said to them, Does this offend you? Therefore what if you see the Son of Man going up where he was before? It is the Spirit who gives life. The flesh does not profit anything. The spoken words which I speak to you is spirit and is life. But there are some from you who do not believe. For indeed Jesus knew from the beginning who they were who did not believe, and who would deliver him, and said, Through this I said to you, that no one can come unto me, unless it was given to him from my Father. From these many of his disciples went back, and walked no more with him. Therefore Jesus said to the 12, Do you not also desire to go? Therefore Simon Peter answered him, Lord, unto whom will we go? You have spoken the words of everlasting life, and we believe and know that you are Christ, the Son of the living God. Jesus answered them, Have not I chosen you 12, and one from you is a devil? Now he spoke of Judas, Simon of Iscariot, for indeed this one was intending to be delivering him, being one from the 12. And after these Jesus walked in Galilee, for indeed he desired not to walk in Judea, because the Jews sought to kill him. And wherever he entered, into towns or cities or fields, they laid the feeble in the streets, and begged him, in order to only touch, if possible, but the hem of his garment. And as many as even touched him were saved, thoroughly saved. And the Pharisees and certain of the scribes who came away from Jerusalem came together unto Jesus, and having seen certain of his disciples eating loaves defiled, that is, with unwashed hands, they found fault. For indeed the Pharisees and all the Jews, unless they washed their hands with the fist, they did not eat, taking hold of the tradition of the elders. And when they came away from the market, unless they immerse, they did not eat. And many other traditions there are which they took hold of, dipping in water, cups and pots and bronze vessels and beds. Thereafter the Pharisees and scribes came to Jesus questioning him, saying, Why do your disciples violate? Walk not according to the traditions of the elders. For indeed they do not wash their own hands, but eat bread with unwashed hands. Now he answered, saying to them, Hypocrites! Well did Isaiah prophesy concerning you hypocrites, as it is written, saying, This people approached me with their own mouth, and honour me with their lips. Now their heart is far away from me. Now in vain they worship me, teaching doctrinal commandments of men. For indeed you send away the commandment of God, taking hold of the tradition of men, dipping in water, pots and cups, and many other such similar things you do. And he said to them, Well, you reject the commandment of God, so that you keep your own tradition. Why do you also violate the commandment of God through your tradition? For indeed God commanded through Moses, saying, Honour your father and your mother, and he who curses father or mother will die the death. Now you say, Whoever, if a man will say to his father or mother, Corban, which is a sacrifice, whatever you profit from me, and permit them no more to do anything for his own father or his own mother, and therefore honour not his own father or his own mother, and therefore cancel the word of God, the commandment of God through your tradition, which you delivered, and many such similar things you do. And he called for all the crowd. He said to them, Hear me all and understand. There is nothing outside a man that enters into him, into the mouth, that can defile him, a man, but that which comes out from him, out of the mouth, this defiles the man. If any have ears to hear, hear. Then came his disciples, saying to him, Do you know that the Pharisees were offended when they heard this word? Now he answered, saying, Every plant which my heavenly Father has not planted will be uprooted. Let them be blind guides of the blind. Now if the blind guide to the blind, both fall into a ditch. And when he entered into a house away from the crowd, his disciples asked him concerning the parable. Then answered Peter, saying to him, Explain to us this some parable. Now Jesus said to them, Are you also still without understanding? Have you not observed that all outside enters into the man cannot defile him, because it enters not into his heart? Have you not yet observed that all enters into the mouth, goes into the stomach, and comes out, cast out into the waste bowl, cleansing all food? Now he said, Now that which comes out of the man, comes out of the mouth, went out from the heart, and that defiles the man. For indeed from within the heart of a man comes out evil thoughts, adulteries, fornications, murders, thefts, false testimonies, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lasciviousness, an evil eye, blasphemies, pride, foolishness. All these evil things come from within, and these be that defile the man. Now to eat with unwashed hands does not defile a man. And from there he arose, went away into the borders, side of Tyre and Sidon, and entered into a house, and desired no one to know it, but he could not be hidden. For indeed a woman of Canaan came out, away from the same borders, whose young daughter had an unclean spirit, heard concerning him, and fell under his feet. Now the woman was a Greek, a Syrophoenician by race, and she cried out, asked him that he cast out the demon from her daughter, saying, Have mercy on me, Lord, Son of David. My daughter is badly demon-possessed. Now he answered her not a word. And his disciples came to him, saying, Release her, because she is crying out behind us. Now he answered, saying, I am not sent, except to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Now she came, worshipping him, saying, Lord, help me. Now Jesus answered, said to her, Let the children first be filled, for indeed it is not good to take the children's bread and throw it to the little dogs. Now she answered, and said to him, Yes, Lord, yet also the little dogs under the table eat out of the children's crumbs, which fall away from their own masters' tables. Then Jesus answered, said to her, O woman, great is your faith. Through this word go. It be done to you as you desire. The demon has gone out from your daughter. And her daughter was healed away from that same hour. And she went away into her house, to find the demon gone out, and her daughter thrown on the bed. And Jesus withdrew from there, and again went out from the borders of Tyre and Sidon, and came unto the sea of Galilee, between the middle of the borders of Decapolis, and went up into a mountain, and sat there. And large crowds came to him, having with themselves the lame, the blind, the dumb, the maimed, and many others, and cast them down near Jesus' feet. And he healed them, insomuch that the crowds marveled, looking at the dumb speaking, the maimed whole, the lame walking, and the blind seeing. And they glorified the God of Israel. And they brought to him a dumb man, unable to speak, and they begged him in order to put his hand upon him. And he took them aside privately, away from the crowd, put his fingers into his ears and spat. He touched his tongue, and looked up to heaven, groaned, and said to him, Ephphatha, that is, be opened. And immediately his hearing opened, and the band of his tongue loosened, and he spoke correctly, and ordered them so that they tell no one. Now as much as he ordered them, even more abundantly they preached, and they were exceedingly above astonishment, saying, He has made all well. He makes both the dumb to hear and the mute to speak. In those days, the crowd being very great, and having nothing to eat, now Jesus called his disciples, and said to them, I have compassion on the crowd, because they have stayed longer with me. Already 3 days, and have had nothing to eat, and I do not desire to release them fasting. And if I release them fasting to their own houses, they will faint in the way. For indeed certain of them have come from afar. And his disciples answered, said to him, From where should we get so much bread here in the wilderness? Insomuch that it can satisfy so much a crowd, or some of these. And Jesus said to them, How much bread do you have? Now they said, 7, and a few small fish. And he commanded, the crowd to recline in order to eat on the ground. And he took the 7 loaves and gratefully gave thanks, broke them, and gave them to his disciples, in order to set it before them. Now the disciples set it before the crowd. And he had a few small fish and blessed it, set his disciples to set it before them also. And now all ate and were satisfied. And they took up of the fragments that abound 7 grain baskets covered over. Now those who ate were about 4,000 men, besides women and children. And he released the crowd. And immediately he entered into a boat with his disciples, and came into the parts of Dalmanutha, into the borders of Magdala. And the Pharisees and Sadducees went out, came and began to question him, seeking from him to show them a supernatural sign away from heaven, tempting him. And he sighed deeply in his spirit. And now he answered, said to them, Why does this generation crave for a supernatural sign? Truly I say to you, whether a supernatural sign will be given to this same generation. When it becomes evening, you say fair weather, because the heaven is red, and dawn, foul weather today, because the heaven is red and gloomy. Hypocrites! You know indeed how to judge the face of the heaven. Now you cannot judge the supernatural signs of the times. Evil and adulterous generation craves for a supernatural sign, and no supernatural sign be given to it except the supernatural sign of the prophet Jonah. And he left them, entered into the boat again, and departed into the opposite side. And they, his disciples, came into the opposite side, having forgotten to take bread, nor had any in the boat with themselves, except 1 bread. And now Jesus ordered them, saying to them, See and beware. Look away from the leaven of the Pharisees and Sadducees, and the leaven of Herod. Now they reasoned in themselves, saying, It is because we have taken no bread. And now Jesus, having known, said to them, Why reason in yourselves, little faiths, because you have taken no bread? Have you not yet observed nor understood? Is hardness still having your heart? Having eyes not looking, and having ears not hearing? And do you not remember when I broke the 5 loaves among the 5,000? How many lunch baskets covered over of fragments did you take up? They said to him, 12. Now when the 7 loaves among the 4,000, how many grain baskets full of fragments did you take up? Now they said, 7. And he said to them, How is it that you do not understand? Do not observe that I spoke to you concerning bread, but beware away from the leaven of the Pharisees and Sadducees. Then they understood that he spoke not beware away from the leaven of bread, but away from the doctrine of the Pharisees and Sadducees. And he came into Bethsaida, and they brought a blind man to him, and begged him in order to touch him. And he took the blind man by the hand, led him outside of the town, and spat in his eyes, and having laid his hands on him, questioned whether he saw anything. And he looked up, saying, I see men as trees, walking. Then he laid his hands again on his eyes, and made him look up. And he was restored, and looked on all of them clearly. And he sent him to his house, saying, Neither enter the town, nor tell it to any in the town.
Don't forget to subscribe.